how do you find the cybersecurity in your words?
How to define cybersecurity
That would be
is,
my first question.
yeah, I mean, cybersecurity boils down to protecting the value of an organization from negative risks in terms of computing resources, in which there is an intelligent adversary. So we're not concerned with people just screwing up. If for it to be security, there has to be some human being on the other side who's trying to do harm. If it's about mistakes, right? If it's about bad architecture, it's about things just failing. That's the Knox problem. That's IT's problem, and it's challenging on its own. But in our case, we have somebody who wants to do us harm, wants to do our clients harm, and wants to not be found, which is critical in all of this.
All right.
So that's a sketch. It's not much of a definition, but it'll do.
Yeah. All right. Speaking of which, so there are like a couple of job routes which even the experienced people apply for. So they're like way too basic roles, like which requires a bare minimum of like a knowledge. Even though experienced people get along with apply for those roles as well. So how come the graduates like me who have like zero professional actual work experience can bypass through them?
There's one way is to bypass them, not apply for them. Don't bother. Sometimes that's the answer. Usually that's the answer, right? In the same way, recruiters trying to make decisions all the way through, you're making decisions. And if the decision you make is I'm going to apply for everything under the sun and spend a bunch of time on it, you got to ask, like, is that the right strategy? But one thing I want you to think about, want your audience to think about, is their own experience that they don't normally think of. Like, most people have had some kind of job in some industry, and maybe it's food service. A lot of us wait tables in college. You know, a lot of us work in bookstores. Some of us do deliveries. Some of us do, drive Uber. Some of us, that kind of stuff. Some of us worked in family businesses. I did, right? My dad was a house painter and an English professor and a musician. What that means is that before I ever had my first real job at 13, I had experience in 3 industries. I had experience through my family and by hanging around with my dad, my mom, who's also a musician, in the entertainment industry and events industry. That's a real industry. I had experience in higher ed, right? Part of the family business. I had a little, I was a pretty terrible house painter. That's not much of an industry, but it is. And so we all have experience in one way or another. The other is, like, there are industries that you may be interested in that you haven't worked in. One of my favorite career strategies, and this applies to everybody throughout their career. I mean, I was talking to a friend of mine who's got as much experience in security as I do about this notion yesterday, which is triangulation, is what I call it, right? You have security, you have location, and you have an industry. And the 3 of these things can be adjusted and will matter more or less to the hiring manager or the recruiter, really the hiring manager. Yeah, remote work is great. I haven't done anything but remote work in a long time. And even when I had an office, I never went. I've been at this for a long time. I was doing remote work when, like, we were doing modems. And so you don't go for remote jobs if you're new. Like, forget it. It's just not going to happen. Why? Because when you're new, you're establishing work habits and communication habits, and physical presence will help keep your head on straight. Right? Luis, who I talked to, this is his first job. I have an office room. I actually rented an office outside of my home office for him, really. Why? So that he has a place to go and change his perspective from I'm at home to work, and then he goes to school. Right? So that means a physical. I hired him because he came to me. He's like, I want an internship. I'm like, so does everybody else. And I look at his location. And I'm like, Oaxaca. Are you really in Oaxaca, Luis? He said, yeah, I'm in Oaxaca. I said, do you have a car? said, yes, I have a car. I said, cool, start on Monday, right? And then I found out, hey, actually it's really good, right? So think about your location, put a pin on a map, figure out how far you want to drive every day. That is your market. Not the worldwide market. That's your market.
All
There are a
right.
lot of people who want you to come in, especially when you're new. They'll insist on it. The other thing is pick an industry to be knowledgeable about. If you haven't worked in, let's say, like pick anything, but let's say the shoe business. I like talking about shoes because I actually had clients that are in the shoe industry. Pick an industry and commit to learning about it and networking with it. Because one of the challenges that I have when I bring somebody onto a project or into some situation is I don't want to have to teach them my business. I don't want to have to teach them the language or the conventions or what's important in the shoe business. Actually, I spent a bunch of years in alternative investments, which is private equity hedge funds. Those guys hate being referred to as financial services. And if you say like, yeah, being in the financial services business, they're like, right? They can't stand that because they're like, no, we're investors, right? That's what we do. We're not financial services like checks and stuff. We don't do that. We don't have tellers. We're not making mortgage loans, right? So on the other hand, if you're in, and so if you understand that world and you know the terminology, know who they think they are and who they really are, which are usually the same, like you endear yourself to them and they're like, I'm not going to have to teach this guy what a hedge fund is. They know it. You don't necessarily have to work in a hedge fund to know that. Like a lot of the time when people talk about you need experience in an industry, they just want you to understand the language. That's most of what it's about.
Okay.
They want to make sure that you understand what's important to their business. Take mortgage lending, for example. That's like a subset of financial services. Years ago, there was an industry group around information security. This was like 2006, 7, called the Mortgage Information Security Organization, MISMO. It probably doesn't exist anymore. It had like 20 members, like anywhere. And I found it online and I joined it. I would go to their conference calls and it was like, I heard different kinds of things and they were all insiders. Now, what that meant was on my LinkedIn, I could say member of MISMO, the Mortgage Information Security Management Organization. Now, how many jobs, tell me how many jobs you need. How many jobs do you need?
Me, as in particularly, of just one?
You just need one job. So when people say, Lair, there are 1 million jobs in information security, that doesn't mean much. If there are 2 million people looking for those jobs, or 3 million people looking for those jobs, or 10 million people looking for those 1 million jobs. But if you're the only person in your town with experience or who knows something of and has like really researched the mortgage business, and you're new at security, right? People will take bets on you if you've got the other two, more so than if you're applying for a job in an industry you haven't researched. That you're like, another thing that you do is like join the industry associations of that business. Like we've got ISACA, ISSA, blah blah blah, right? We have our own conferences. We have Black Hat. We have RSA, all that stuff. We have meetings we can go to. Those guys do too. Everybody does. HR has the Society of Human Resources Professionals. If I wanted to sell into that industry, I would go to their stuff. And because one of the things I get to do there is like, if I'm the only cyber person who shows up and they need cyber help, guess who they're going to call? They're going to meet the guy or gal that they met at their industry meeting who they like. And then we all want to work, like I said, we all want to work with people we like and are familiar with us, who get us.
And there is next question will be like somewhere around like for a beginner like me who just wants to get hands-on experience, the professional experience in cybersec field. How can they stand out from the people who are actually experienced, way more qualified for the same job? How can they be stand out? How can they show themselves as they are like, yeah, they are also the one of the most competitors in, as in I can say, they are in the race as well with them.
Mm-hmm. One thing you could do is be
So
cheaper. Like you're not going to get like if money were no object, like you pick the more experienced person every time. You would, I would.
yeah.
It's like no question. So you're going to come in cheaper. You're going to come in with
Mm-hmm.
a, enough enthusiasm to have produced
Mm-hmm.
something online that you can send somebody. Like one of my favorite things. Every now and then,
Mm-hmm.
somebody sends me their like a research paper that they did recently in university. Like
Okay.
I'm working for a client where I just was recruiting in Greece. And by the time this airs, this process will probably be over. So if this guy hears it, it doesn't matter. This guy sent me his
Mm-hmm.
master's thesis on I forgot what. I'm like, good God, this is good. So like talking about what you can do and listing what you can do on
Mm-hmm.
your LinkedIn profile resume is fine. But forget about cover letters. Like
Mm-hmm.
send me a few pages of a paper you wrote. Point to some
Mm-hmm.
articles that you've done. Like you hit me up for a job. I know that you're doing a YouTube channel about security and you're helping
Yeah.
people out, right? And you ask good questions. I can watch some of this and say, God, like this guy handles an interview really well with a guy who never knows how to shut up, right?
Yeah.
And that's really cool. Like that's great. Hardly anybody's doing this, especially who's new. Most people like wait until they have like me. I'm going to start a podcast. I've been at this for 30 years. Finally, I'm going to get to it. Right?
All right. Yeah.
How people do it later on in their careers is they write books. You're not going to write a book,
Mm-hmm.
but you can write some articles. And you can write articles not about the information you already have in your head, but the questions. Then go do research. Like it's kind of how research works. It's like you have questions
Mm-hmm.
and then you look for research,
Yeah.
then you blah, blah, blah. And they don't need to be elaborate. The other thing is publish as you go. I've had lots of people, I had one person come to me and said she was working on a paper that she was going to have published in some academic journal, but it was going to take like another 6 months. I'm like, publish that thing in segments. Like, get it out the door. You can publish the
Okay.
formal paper later, but like, if you can publish something meaningful for you,
Mm-hmm.
not something that's going to get clicks. Don't worry about the clicks. That's not the point. The point is to publish your research as you go. Be wrong sometimes. Like if you post something that's incorrect, great, you can correct it.
With this one, so what about the cybersecurity engineer? Means what are the keywords or what are the skills they should be putting up in their resume over there, and what are things they should not be putting up as well?
Engineering is almost always about a certain level of fundamentals like networking and system administration, but it's mostly about
Mm-hmm.
products. And so look carefully at the products that they're listing. If they list a lot of
Mm-hmm.
products, you should ask like, which ones really matter here. What are the most important ones?
Mm-hmm.
And then which ones are you going to be hands-on with? They're usually like a couple of core things. Like if you're an engineer or SOC,
Mm-hmm.
it's going to be SIM, it's going to be SOAR. You're going to need some
Mm-hmm.
scripting, Python and PowerShell and Bash are your bunnies.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're talking about like the sort of a staff engineer for an internal security team, it's going to include things like perimeter security stuff like firewalls. Everywhere you go is going to be cloud. So AWS, Azure, a little bit GCP. Actually, that's one thing I would recommend to everybody. I keep forgetting. The big hyperscalers, particularly AWS and Azure, have lots of training for cheap or free, and they all offer free accounts.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the reasons I did Sentinel Hackers was an Azure. I could get an account for free for some period of time,
Okay.
a certain amount of capacity for a period of time. And if I ran out of that, I would register a different email address. I would get a different phone number, and I would register a new one. Right? Or I'd start paying. Like I pay like $10 a month for an account that I don't touch very often. But the point is that cloud expertise could be had, or cloud experience can be had pretty cheaply and with basically no effort. And there's a huge difference between taking a cloud certification and doing it. It's not like, if you want to get experience with let's say checkpoint firewalls, you pretty much have to get some checkpoint firewalls.
All right.
Right. I was going to say Palo, but actually, I think they might have some trial stuff, maybe. But if you want to do cloud and it's fundamental, like you can get that pretty easily.
All right. And the next one would be cybersecurity analyst and cybersecurity. The next two I'll be considering: cybersecurity analyst and cybersecurity consultant. What about those things?
Cybersecurity analyst tends to mean intrusion analyst, but it can really mean anything. You got to look at the details.
And cybersecurity consultant.
Consultant means you've done the job enough, have enough experience to teach other people who have experienced something they didn't know, something that's impressive. That is, cybersecurity consultant has two meanings. One, it's you're actually an actual expert, or you're a contractor, and that's a job category, and that's usually a way to get people on the team without having to make commitments to them. Sometimes it's for legal regulatory challenges that prevent somebody from hiring somebody as full-time, or it's because sometimes it's just bad categorization. But consultant usually in the true sense means you've been around the block, you've got years, you've seen multiple environments, and so you're going to come. You come to me because you have that experience. By that definition, there is absolutely no such thing as entry-level consultant, pretty much in any field.
Understood. And what about the SOC analyst level 1? As you mentioned up earlier, SOC analyst, someone can go for SOC analyst level 1. Means how would you consider that one?
How do you get those, or I'm sorry, I missed the context.
Cybersecurity SOC analyst level 1.
Oh, yeah. Malware reverse engineering is pretty handy, and it's something you can do at home. But what I've heard called a zoo, which is get some hardware, like some actual hardware, and you can get malware samples from certain websites. You can collect it in your own. You can collect spam. I have an email address that I've had for years that I just use to collect phishing and spam and malware, and every now and then I look at it just for a laugh. I won't tell anyone what it is. It's a secret because I kind of want to. I like it, and I like a nice clean feed of malware and phishing. But you can do that on your own. You don't have to. You certainly don't need a university degree for it. You probably won't find the one that covers that very well. You don't necessarily need a SANS class to do that. You can just do it on your own. Learn how to reverse engineer malware. Learn how to write malware. Don't use it for evil. Use it for awesome. So that's handy. But a lot of SOC work is about customer service. Again, one of the questions I like to ask is, tell me what a firewall is, or tell me why end users should not have administrator rights on their computers. Why? Because sometimes we have to explain people why they can't have admin, why we took it away, and we need to be able to help them deal with it. I think customer service jobs are great as primers for cybersecurity, because we are in a helping profession. We're here to help people. We're not here like fighting bad guys and all that stuff is nice, right? That's part of the job, and it's really important to keep in mind that they're always out there. But there's this kind of dual quality where, we're not cops. Frankly, I don't think much cops. What we do is help people adapt their environments and adapt their way of doing business so that they can take the right kinds of risks in the face of people who would slit your throat if they caught you, if they could. These are dangerous people, literally, and the people get killed. The organized crime is crime. But on the other hand, we're trying to help people who just want to do their jobs, make money, leave at 6 o'clock on a Friday, not get called on the weekends because they want to go to their kids' footy match or whatever. And that's what it's about, both at the same time. So anyway, I lost my train of thought, but
Okay.
that's what I do sometimes.
What about the pre-sales consultant? Pre-sales. I would go for like cybersec pre-sales.
Yeah, pre-sales
Can
consultant.
someone a beginner like me can enter as well?
No, but what you can do is keep doing this and enter through the marketing door.
Okay.
But no, pre-sales consultants get their start because they are able to talk at a business level, a sales level, and a technical level at the same time. That's really hard.
Okay.
I started doing pre-sales back at ISS in 2000 because I was a customer of theirs at Citi. And salespeople would trot me into the customer meetings and point at me and go, that guy was our customer at Citi. He's going to talk to you about how awesome our stuff was. And I would bomb. I was terrible because I sort of know the tech, but I only use it on one job. And the technology, frankly, was pretty new. Like hardly anybody had experience, which is one of the reasons they hired me. And so really all I had was, I worked at Citi. And I didn't know anything about sales. For like the first, pretty much as long as I was in SE, I was bad at it. Why? Because I didn't have the sense of self-confidence in my in my technical knowledge and my hands-on experience with these products over the course of time and in multiple locations to be able to give a good demo, right? Also doing a lot of what you do is demoing. A lot of what you do is architecture. So you need to understand like where the product is going to be and what it integrates with and doesn't integrate with and how. Like those are hard jobs. I don't know if I'd ever want to do it again. In fact, I do it now. I don't want to work that hard. So like mad props to the people who work as SEs who are good at it. Most are not good.
Okay. All right. So that concludes I guess that's almost all the questions I had. So how would you conclude the episode, and how would you describe it? It's like we did shoot up a second episode as well as this third episode as well. So how would you conclude this entire conversation we had till now?
Eat your vegetables and don't believe a word Eric Clapton says. No, I don't know. I don't conclude things well. But I would say I really appreciate this.
Okay.
I mean, other people should do what you're doing, man. Like this is great. You're doing this you started with Zoom, with like an ordinary pair of like earphones and microphone, and LinkedIn, and you just reach out to me and just like that's how you do it. This is all punk rock.
Yeah.
And this is how worlds are moved. So I'm really proud to have been part of this. I hope to see you keep doing it because you're going to learn over time. It's going to get better and better. And I'll be able to say, hey, I was on the first couple of episodes and I'm proud of that. And I've worked with a lot of people like you, some of whom kept going, others who didn't. And one of the great joys of my life and my career is to be able to say, yeah, I knew that guy back when he was starting. Look at him today. And I think that's the thing that people should take away from this is if you stick with this and if you love this and if you take action and like I will move heaven and earth to help you.